everyone, MichaelBtheGameGenie here, and today on Game Genie Reviews, we're going to be taking a look at the new X-Men vs. Street Fighter 3/4 scale arcade from Arcade1up. That's right, on today's video we're going to be taking a look at the X-Men vs. Street Fighter cabinet from Arcade1up. When this cab was announced initially during last year's Summer of Gaming, I actually had zero intentions of buying it because at the time I was experiencing a little fighter fatigue with 3 fighting game cabinets in my arcade already and space being so limited. However, when I came across this cab available in-store to buy at Best Buy, my FOMO got the best of me. Let's find out if I regret this impulse buy, or is this one of the best cabinets released from Arcade1up this past year. So here it is in my arcade, the X-Men vs. Street Fighter Arcade1up, and you know what? It's a pretty striking cabinet despite the fact it doesn't match the original. When I saw the announcement at the Summer of Gaming event for X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and of course the other half of this equation, Marvel vs. Capcom, I wasn't in love with either cabinet. When these games came to the arcades, they were merely conversion kits and didn't have dedicated cabinets, so on the side panels of the originals sometimes there was nothing, or maybe there might have been a square sticker displaying the game art. With X-Men vs. Street Fighter, there was a small square art piece that Arcade1up has basically extrapolated to fit the shape of their standard arcade side panel, and you know what? It actually looks amazing. Red is just such a striking color for a cabinet, and it really sticks out in the row next to the other cabinets. I love the logo at the top of the cab, and the artwork where the fighters are shaped in an X superimposed over a black X is really cool looking. I am a stickler for these cabs looking as much like the real cabinet as possible, but I have to admit, this was a nice looking change. I do have one small issue, and that is with the form factor, and it's the standard Arcade1up shape. It would have been nice if this was shaped more like a classic Capcom arcade cabinet, and it's nice to see with the CES announcements they are moving in that direction. The marquee is really impressive, with great, even light distribution throughout. There are no hotspots and nowhere where you can tell where the LED light strip is in the box. Well, there is good reason for that, as this is a newly designed marquee that is actually quite a bit thicker than the traditional Arcade1up light-up marquee. I'm guessing the additional distance in the marquee box is what allows for more even light distribution throughout. There are several small design alterations with this cab that you will notice when building it, but this may be my favorite. The marquee art itself is really cool with all the characters on it, and certainly one of the more busy marquees in the Arcade1up lineup. The bezel, I can't get confirmation on if it matches any original bezel for this cabinet, as again, this was a conversion kit, and you should see some of the machines this was put in. I will say that I really like how they continue the steel grate design from the control panel and marquee, and I like that they have the moves posted on the bottom, but I don't love the 2 characters half shown on either side of the screen. I get what they were trying to do, but it just doesn't work for me, and I would have preferred something a little more simplistic like on the Marvel Superheroes cabinet. This screen is the same Wave 3 BOE monitor that we have come accustomed to now at this point, and it looks beautiful. To steal a line from my buddy Retro Ralph, it looks bright and tight. I will say that even though it appears to be the same model monitor, the picture actually looks so much better than even the Wave 3 cabs. I don't know if it's fine-tuning the settings with these or what, but seriously, the picture quality from this monitor is fantastic. All the included games look the way they should on the monitor, and I have noticed zero fading on the monitor when viewing from an angle. For those of you familiar with Capcom Arcade1up fighting cabinets, this control panel layout should look pretty familiar to you. In fact, it's the exact same buttons and sticks from the Marvel Superheroes cabinet, which is actually also accurate to the control panel on the conversion cabs. The design on the control panel featuring a steel grate looks cool and is consistent with the original cabinet. However, the art directly under the buttons and sticks is close to the Marvel Superheroes design, and this one seems to differ slightly from some of the original cab's control panels I have seen. The controls themselves feel exactly the same as the controls on the Marvel Superheroes standard cabinet. Not the limited edition with Samuel buttons and sticks, but the clone ones, and you know, they work for me. I have no issues performing my Hadoukens, Berserker Barrages, anything I try, so the controls work pretty well. I mean, people are pretty particular with controls in fighting games, so make your own decision, but I'm happy with the controls. The real exciting thing for me here is that this is the very first cabinet in Canada to come bundled with the light-up control deck, and I would be lying if I said this wasn't a selling factor for me with this cab. I've been pretty vocal that I'm not a light-up buttons kind of guy, and I want these arcades to look as close to the original as possible, and I thought this concept was a little hokey. However, my curiosity got the best of me, and I wanted to experience it for myself, and actually, it's pretty cool. The light-up control panel works by a combination of an LED strip at the base of the control deck and art etched specifically into the plexiglass deck protector to increase the lighted effect. If this isn't your jam, don't worry because it isn't automatically on and you will have to press a switch to enable the feature. You can press the same switch again to scroll through color options, with the last one being a fade technique of all the colors offered. As much as this screams in the face of everything I feel these things should be, it's stupid, and it's fun, and I like it. The front kick plate is the standard fare from Arcade1up, showcasing the games included on the cabinet. I have never had an issue with this kick plate, however, I know most people have been pretty critical, and as we learned from yesterday's announcements, going forward there will be either a sticker coin door on the Legacy cabinet, or a raised molded coin door on the standard cabinets, which is a pretty neat feature. I like all my cabinets to have similar traits, so the mismatching kick plates is going to destroy my OCD. The riser is another area where I'm not necessarily in love, as it's incredibly basic with no T-molding, and the images kinda just feel like PNG files laid on it. Not a big deal, it's a riser, but not exactly maximum effort in my opinion. Overall, this is a fantastic looking cabinet. They didn't have a lot to work with here, as there really wasn't an original cab that they had all the pieces they normally rely on for the inspiration for their art, but they took cues from what was good and made what honestly I wish the original cabinet looked like. Good job, Arcade1up. You guys know I'm a sucker for Arcade1up recreating the original cabinet, and there's so many things about this cabinet that normally I would be pretty dismissive of, but seeing it in my arcade, it just looks great. But I also know that not everybody is as caught up in the aesthetics as I am, and mainly you just want to know about the games, right? Well, let's talk about the included games, and of course, what the online experience is like. When this cab was announced, there was initially some confusion over the included games because two versions of the cabs were being announced at the same time, with different art depicting a different marquee game and a slightly different game lineup. The two games that were going to remain the same on both cabs were the marquee games the two cabs were modeled after. However, what changed was you either got X-Men Children of the Atom and X-Men Mutant Apocalypse on this cab, while the other had Marvel Superheroes, Marvel Superheroes vs. Capcom, and Marvel Superheroes War of the Gems. What cab had the better lineup? That's entirely up to the person picking up the cab. Personally, I like the artwork on this cabinet more, and it was the only one available in Canada at the time, so this is the one I chose. First up is the marquee game on this cabinet, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and honestly, a game I have no experience with prior to buying this cab. Of course, I am an OG Dreamcast guy and have tons of experience with another game on this cabinet, but X-Men vs. Street Fighter was new to me, and oh wow, do I ever like this game. Of course, it's your typical Capcom fighting game, so if you have ever played a Street Fighter, you should be able to get a hang of this pretty quickly. This is a tag team fighting game where you control two characters with two separate life bars that you can swap out for each other on command during the fight. Unlike Street Fighter, you don't have to win 2 rounds here, but you have to deplete both members of the opposing team's health bar to win the fight. I love this style of fighting game and find it moves just so much quicker than the standard 2 out of 3 rounds fight. I am also really bad for finding a main and sticking with that character and never playing as anyone else, where this game forces you to use multiple characters and learn 2 movesets. Of course, I cheat and use my main from Street Fighter and my main from Marvel Superheroes. Last but not least is there is nothing more rewarding than pulling off the super moves to give you a competitive advantage in the fight or just a really cool ending screen. I love this game. Marvel vs. Capcom is up next, and hey guys, it's freaking Marvel vs. Capcom. I alluded to playing one of these games to death on my Dreamcast back in the day, and this is the one. This was always just such a fun and weird mash-em-up of characters from both the Marvel universe and the Capcom universe. I never took this game seriously because of that and never really got good, but I always had fun playing. This game is beautiful with so many colors happening on screen at once, and it's just so vibrant and fun to watch. I also really like some of the characters they included, like I have always had a big soft spot for Venom, and it's so cool to see him included in this game. For those familiar with the Capcom vs. games, this is a continuation and builds upon what made all of those games so great. They improved the tag team mechanics and add really cool visual sequences for some of the moves. Capcom's sprite art has always been so top notch in the arcades, and this is another example where all the characters, backgrounds, everything just looks so amazing. This is a beautiful game with so much nostalgia, and it plays oh so well. It's so great to have an arcade version of this game to play at home finally. The third arcade fighter on this cabinet is the one I was a little disappointed by because it's a double for me, as I already have X-Men Children of the Atom on my Marvel Superheroes cabinet, and honestly, it's my least played game on that one. I'm not saying it's a bad game by any means, and it really isn't a full double thanks to this cab having a new feature that we will talk about in a minute that breathes new life into this game for me. This game is not a tag team fighter and more your traditional Capcom fighting game, and it also has a more focused roster dedicated to the X-Men universe. I have heard a lot of people say that this is their favorite Capcom Marvel fighting game, and I've been playing it more on this cabinet to see what I might have been missing. Last but not least is X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, which you may not remember from the arcades. Now if you had a Super Nintendo, you might remember it because this is a console game. I have no idea why they included a console game other than as an added bonus, but seeing how they left some games off this cab, it kinda sucks. To be clear, some console games absolutely will translate well to an arcade cabinet, but this action platformer I absolutely prefer playing it on a console. At least it's a pretty good console game with some great graphics. I hope that this is a trend that doesn't continue in the future other than as Easter egg games and not in place of an arcade game that could have been added or an easy out for a brand. Now that we have had a chance to talk about all the included games, let's discuss the feature that is a first for Arcade1up fighting cabinets. This cabinet is Wi-Fi enabled and allows for online play. More than the artwork, the light-up deck protector, or anything else, what really pushed my curiosity over the edge was the online aspect of this cabinet, and would this component fend off some fighter fatigue I'm sure we have all been feeling. I couldn't get the concept out of my head that this would add a new level of challenge and excitement to playing these games. Seeing someone show up on screen to face you head to head would be the new equivalent of putting a quarter down. Well, provided it worked. This was one thing I was a little concerned about, as my buddy Restalgia and I have been discussing online fighting games and how difficult it is to get that component to work well as we found out from John D on the 1UP Weekly that Code Mystics might not have handled the online for these cabinets, so I was nervous what that experience would be like. I'm extremely happy to report that the experience works really well, and more importantly, is super fun. It is honestly everything I was hoping it would be. The games, even though they aren't on a dedicated server and are running peer-to-peer, work amazing with no lag or interruptions in the gameplay. This is even with my terrible internet in my arcade, and it still works flawlessly, and I can play at the highest level. Well, to my highest level anyways, because apparently I'm terrible and everybody seems to be teeing off on me. Well, if anyone is interested in having a little fun and picking up a few easy wins, find Michael B online and get ready for these claws. So guys, that's my take on the X-Men vs. Street Fighter Arcade1up. I went from not even wanting this cab initially when it was announced to the absolute surprise of this being one of my favorite cabinets released this past year. The cabinet looks beautiful, the games work really well, and I've even fallen in love with the light-up deck protector. Of course, the real winning element is the online experience, how well it works, and of course, how much fun it is. I can't recommend this cabinet highly enough to Marvel fans, Capcom fans, and of course, fighting game fans in general. Guys, let me know in the comments, are you interested in the X-Men vs. Street Fighter Arcade1up? How about the online experience? Does that excite you? Anyways guys, that's going to do it for today's review. Thank you so very much for watching. I always appreciate your support. This is Michael B. the Game Genie, and I'll talk to you next time.